Navigating food labels can feel like deciphering some complex code. It is easy to fall prey to and be misled by the clever marketing and deceptive packaging. With this video, I'd like to help you cut through the confusing ingredient list, understand what's actually in your food, and give you the tools to make informed choices about what it is that you're eating. Stick to the end for a cool bonus recommendation. Let's begin with a little game. I'll give you 2 food labels and you'll choose what you think is the healthiest option out of the 2. Seems easy enough. Let's compare item A with item B. I'll give you a moment to think about it. Judging by the nutrition facts, it sure seems like item B would be a healthier choice. It's low in calories, way lower in fats, less sodium, and virtually no sugars. Seems pretty fine compared to option A, which has quite a lot of fat content and calories per serving. But let's see what's behind the labels. Item A is a cup of roasted pistachios, and item B is a cup of nacho Doritos. Shocking, right? I think this comparison demonstrates a pretty important point. You cannot determine the health of a product by the nutrition facts alone. It tells you nothing about what's actually in food. And as you learn later in the video, this part of the label is often misrepresented, taking advantage of some FDA loopholes that food manufacturers are way too eager to use to make their products appear healthier. Beyond what's listed on the label, pistachios are rich in vitamins and minerals like potassium, magnesium, vitamin B6. These nutrients, coupled with their antioxidant properties, make pistachios a superior snack, actually earning their spot in the superfoods category. In contrast, Doritos contain some pretty gnarly ingredients, addictive additives like MSG, which can overstimulate the brain's reward centers, leading to mood swings and cravings, artificial colorings and flavorings, both of which can lead to severe inflammation, high blood pressure, behavioral issues in children, digestive discomfort, and some serious long-term health issues, just to name a few. Needless to say, pistachios are a way better option compared to Doritos, which offer little else than empty calories and some seriously harmful ingredients. But you wouldn't have gathered that from the nutrition facts alone. So let's take a closer look at how to get the most accurate picture from the food labels and the red flags that you should be watching out for. The first thing you should look at is the serving size. Understanding serving size is essential when evaluating the healthiness of food because it directly affects the nutrition information that you see on the label. Food companies often exploit this section to make their products appear healthier than they really are. There's a loophole in food labeling regulations that allow companies to omit certain nutritional information if it falls below a specific threshold. For example, if a food contains less than 0.5 grams of a particular nutrient, it can be listed as 0 on the nutrition label. Companies often use this to their advantage by manipulating the serving size to keep some ingredients like added sugars, unhealthy fats, or artificial colors or preservatives below this threshold. That's why you'll sometimes see a serving size of 10 chips per bag. You might have noticed in the prior label example that the total carbohydrate content doesn't really add up. Let's take a closer look at this Doritos label again. The total carbs are listed at 18 grams. Below, it is broken down into fiber listed at 1 gram and sugar at 0.5 grams. This amounts to 1.5 gram, which does not add up to the total 18. So where's the rest of these carbohydrates? Well, there's a third type of carb, which is called a starch, and it is not required to be listed on the label. Here's the catch though. A starch is just a long chain of sugars, naturally found in things like potatoes, rice, bananas, and other starchy grains and vegetables. In processed foods like chips, cookies, and similar snacks, the starches are highly refined and go by the names of cornstarch, maltodextrin, modified food starch, tapioca starch, and others. Once in your body, the starch quickly breaks down into glucose molecules, which go straight to your blood, causing a rapid glucose spike. These starches, once refined, lose almost all of their nutrient and fiber content, acting no better than simple sugars inside your body. Maltodextrin, in fact, is considered even worse than straight-up table sugar. If you eat a spoonful of sugar, it breaks down into fructose and glucose inside your body, and will have a glycemic index of roughly 65. Anything above 55 5 is already moderate to high. Maltodextrin, on the other hand, is broken down into straight-up glucose and has a glycemic index of up to 120, absolutely skyrocketing your blood sugar levels, leading to rapid insulin release, which, besides causing severe stress in your body, increases your risk of developing insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes over time. But since it's classified as a starch, the manufacturer can still call their product sugar-free. So next time when looking at the label, check out the total carbs section. And if the math doesn't add up, then you know that the rest of these carbohydrates are coming from probably even worse sources than sugar itself. Speaking of sugar, when looking at the label, you need to differentiate between naturally occurring sugars and added sugars. Food companies often use various names for sugar to make their product seem healthier or to downplay the sugar content. Many packaged foods that claim to be healthy are loaded with added sugars by the names of dextrose, maltose, sucrose, cane juice, cane syrup, fruit juice concentrate, or the vague natural sweetener. Companies will often use multiple types of sugars in their products to make the total sugar content harder to identify. Always check the ingredient list for these names to get a clearer sense of how much sugar is in this food. The next thing you should look at are the first few ingredients in the product. Since the ingredients are listed in order from highest quantity to smallest, everything else is pretty much a side note. So let's take a look at this Cliff's Builder's Bar, for example. Package reads 20 grams of protein, gluten-free, non-GMO, low glycemic. Looks good according to the claims, but let's take a look at these ingredients. First ingredient is Soy Protein Isolate. This is a very cheap source of protein that is highly refined. I will go more in depth on this later. Next up, cane sugar. Self-explanatory, that's sugar. Cane syrup. This is just another name for sugar. Brown rice syrup. You guessed it. Also sugar. This is a perfect example of what I talked about earlier, how food companies often use different names for essentially the same ingredient. Judging by these first and therefore most abundant ingredients, this protein bar is almost entirely made up of sugar. And the rest of these ingredients don't inspire any confidence either. Yet it is targeted towards athletes, active individuals trying to gain some muscle mass or get a little extra protein in. Little do they know this highly processed protein bar will give them nothing but a highly refined source of protein, tons of sugar, unhealthy fats, and some pretty dangerous fillers. In fact, this bar contains a lot of ingredients that are so bad that they earn their rightful spot on the red flags list. Red flags are ingredients that should absolutely never be in your food. These are for the most part chemicals, sugars, and flavoring agents that can cause a myriad of health issues. And if you see them on a label, you should really be careful with the food that you're thinking of buying, as brands that resort to these kinds of ingredients don't really care about the effect their product will have on your health once you eat it. So here are the names that you should be looking out for. You might have heard of some of these before, and I have already briefly mentioned a few. It's things like maltodextrin, a highly processed carbohydrate with a glycemic index almost twice as high as regular table sugar. High fructose corn syrup, a sweetener linked to obesity, insulin resistance, and liver issues. Artificial colors, colorings like yellow 5 and red 40 contain benzodiazepine, a chemical that is known to cause cancer in both humans and animals. Partially hydrogenated oils. These are oils like palm oil, canola oil, vegetable oils, and seed oils, all of which are linked to inflammation, increased cholesterol levels, and increased risk of heart disease. Soy Protein Isolate. Like I mentioned before, this is a highly processed form of soy protein, extracted from defatted soybeans, and unfortunately an ingredient most often used in protein shakes, protein bars, vegan foods, and most meat substitutes. The soy undergoes extensive processing to isolate the protein source, potentially introducing toxic chemicals like hexane, reducing nutritional value, and potentially even altering the protein's structure. Isomaltulose, another sugar additive that can potentially overstimulate the liver with excess fructose, similar to high fructose corn syrup. Natural and artificial flavors. This is a catch-all term that can include hundreds of different chemicals, composition of which is often not disclosed, making it difficult to know if the flavors contain chemicals, allergens, or preservatives that can have long-term health risks. Modified food starch. This refers to any starch that has been severely altered and stripped of all of its fiber and nutrient content, leaving the composition very similar to simple sugars. Like I mentioned before, this can be cornstarch, potato starch, rice starch, tapioca starch, and others. And this too is considered an ultra-processed food. So pay close attention to these names, and if you see any of them on the label, it is honestly best to avoid this food product altogether, as these ingredients not only not provide any nutritional value, but they can cause some pretty disturbing consequences for your gut and body. With the health food industry continuously expanding, many products are marketed towards those seeking healthier options. While the clever packaging might make you assume that the claims are true, you should really be careful with the following foods, as in reality they can be very deceiving. Let's break some of them down. Granola and protein bars. Like you saw in the example before, despite being marketed as healthy, many granola and protein bars are loaded with sugars and unhealthy fats. Some bars contain as much sugar as candy bars, along with some pretty refined and cheap protein sources. Low-fat foods. Low-fat and fat-free products are often deceptive because when fat is removed, a lot of what gives the food its flavor is also gone. To compensate this loss, food manufacturers often add sugars, artificial flavors, and thickening agents to improve the texture and taste. This results in products that may be lower in fat but higher in refined carbohydrates and sugar, which can lead to insulin spikes, fat storage, and increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Multigrain or whole grain labeled foods. Made with whole grains is a common marketing ploy. In the US, the food labeling regulations allow the manufacturer to label their food as whole grain even if it contains as little as 1% whole grains. There is no requirement for how much whole grain must be present in the product for the claim to be made, and manufacturers are not required to disclose the actual whole grain percentage within the product. These terms are often used to make products sound healthy, but many of these products contain refined white flour as the primary ingredient, making them virtually no better than the regular non-healthy alternatives. No sugar or diet foods. Foods labeled as light, sugar-free, or diet often contain artificial sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, and acesulfame potassium to provide the sweetness without the calories. However, research suggests that these sweeteners may negatively affect our gut bacteria, increase our risk of cancer, induce sugar cravings, and may even lead to weight gain due to metabolic confusion. And as I talked about earlier, the loophole with starch content may mask some of these sugars within the product. Packaged salads. While the salad itself may contain healthy greens and vegetables, the dressings that come with prepackaged salads are often loaded with unhealthy oils, sugars, and preservatives. So if you're in a hurry and buying prepackaged salads, avoid the dressings that come with and instead use something like olive oil, salt, and pepper. Juice. Even juice labeled as 100% juice or even freshly squeezed juices can be very misleading. The juicing process removes most to all fiber from the fruit, leaving behind a concentrated source of sugars that can spike your blood sugar levels. And if you've ever made orange juice at home, you know just how little juice a fruit will yield. You'll need 3 to 4 oranges just to fill a glass. That's a lot. This makes most fruit juices a little different from sugary soft drinks, and this is the case even with green or veggie juices, unfortunately. So instead of juicing your fruits and veggies, make a green smoothie. This way you're getting all the fiber from the foods and your body can easier absorb the nutrients that they provide. And last but not least are electrolyte drinks. Electrolyte drinks targeted at athletes and health-conscious individuals often contain high amounts of sugar, making the drink no better than a sugary soda. Many contain artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives, which may have long-term health consequences like contributing to inflammation or allergies. If you want to truly hydrate and get those electrolytes in, drink a coconut water instead. It offers natural electrolytes, no added sugars, and is a far better alternative. And as promised, here's a bonus hack for you that I hope you find useful. There's an awesome app that I use for convenience and in-depth research into the products that I buy. It's called Yuka. You might have heard of it or similar apps, but they all work with the same principle. You scan the barcode of a product, and besides giving you a health rating, the app gives you a breakdown of all the ingredients, why they're considered good or bad, and whether this product is worth consuming. It is a game changer, and you can use it even for cosmetic products. Go ahead, I challenge you to scan a few products around your home that you think are harmless, like your sunscreen or that salad dressing. Overall, this is a great tool to use for determining what's actually in the product without doing the research on all of these confusing names yourself. Hopefully, having gained all this knowledge, you can now recognize packaged foods for what they really are and make better choices for yourself and for your loved ones. The foods that we eat make up our whole being. Don't be misled by the colorful marketing and clever wording. Take your health into your own hands by doing your own investigation and finding out the truth of what you're really eating. I hope you found this content useful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you in my next video.